I think in Jamaica as a whole, vaccine hesitancy needs to be overcome, and we'll be adding to that campaign. And secondly, no one can avoid the responsibility of the decisions they take themselves, because the price they pay is infecting their grandmother and killing them. I can't put it more bluntly.
Are you disappointed that poor countries and developing states like within CARICOM are still not receiving sufficient vaccines to move towards herd immunity, and the implications of not doing that at this time?
But that's a very fair question, and I take you to the recent G7 meeting that we hosted in Cornwall in England, and we got a commitment that we had already made, but we now have it from the G7 as a whole, that within the next calendar year, and certainly going into 2022, we will be making an extraordinary effort to make sure that the vaccine distribution is more equitable and reaches those very countries that you mentioned, including the Caribbean. But I need to take it back a little bit before I go forward, which is to say that even COVAX is not a throwaway line. At the time, the US president was anti-World Health Organization. The whole development of the vaccines were very much nationalistic. Whereas you have AstraZeneca, which was one of the first out of the stocks. And even to this day, it is selling the vaccines at a not-for-profit price at $6 a dose. And it'll be a long, long time before they actually recoup the funding that they've made. And it's a global operation. They're not just manufacturing in the UK, they're manufacturing in India, Korea, and many other places, and in the EU. And it is no surprise that it is the cheapest vaccine and the only vaccine that's been used in Jamaica, although a couple of others have been approved. So that is an important point. The other one is the pace at which this vaccine was developed. In Jamaica, when I speak to a few people who are a little bit hesitant about taking the vaccine, they always say this thing: well, it was developed so fast. It was delivered fast because we funded it, front-loaded. Normally, people in the labs, they come to a certain stage, they have to prove to everybody that this thing works, then they share the data with others, and it's a very slow process. That's why it takes sometimes 5 years, 10 years to get to a point where you develop a vaccine. But this time we front-loaded the research, and we placed our orders with AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, and all the other ones before they finished their clinical trials. We took a huge gamble in the UK and ordered 400 million doses. The time has now come for us to distribute those vaccines. And within the next few days, and I literally mean the next few days, we will be making an announcement that will please every Jamaican. The challenge that's faced the government here is the challenge that has faced every cabinet in every part of the world, especially the countries that are global facing. It's in the UK as well. We rely on tourism, we rely on free trade, we rely on visitors. We want to have concerts, sports events, and the like, even in the recent Euro final and Wimbledon and everything else. People have not talked a great deal about the real suffering of people here in Jamaica. People have lost their jobs. They're not working on cruise ships. They're not working in hotels here. They're not working in the resorts in Florida. The seasonal agricultural work has struggled. It is only because the family is so strong that they've absorbed these people here. But how long can these people bear that sort of pain? And way back when Jamaica started to just slowly open up the tourism industry, Ed Butler and his team and I actually sat and created this idea of the COVID resilient zone.
Right.
And we made a virtue out of the fact that tourists largely keep themselves in certain locations and things. And that has actually worked very well. The protocols in the hotels here are world class. I don't think there are many countries where they're demonstrably as good as they are over here. And I've seen that replicated in the restaurants and places that I've been to in Jamaica. The incidence of actual spread of the virus amongst tourists and then people working in the tourism industry is remarkably low because people are being careful. Now, I understand exactly what the Prime Minister of Wholeness is trying to do here, which is to start to revive these vital sectors, because without that extra that goes with tourism and also for local people, the economic situation will be pretty bad. So I see this as a careful way of opening it up. But it boils down to individual behavior, and we are struggling with this in the UK. You saw scenes on television of how people were behaving during the European competition. the idea was not a free-for-all. The idea was not that thousands without tickets would turn up into a venue. The idea certainly wasn't that you would abandon masks and all those sort of things, which is why Prime Minister Boris Johnson, he's still committed to the 19th of July when we ease all these restrictions, but he's had to sort of pull back in about wearing of masks in public areas and inviting the idea of this vaccine passport or some sort of identification to be used, although he's loath to. But he's now been forced into that because some people, are choosing to ignore these. Okay, we have close to 2/3 of our population who are now vaccinated. That gives us a shield. But against the variant and what may happen, we cannot be absolutely certain. So no one can shirk themselves from individual responsibility for this. If people misbehave, the country will pay a price, and the recovery will be slower. The other part linked to this thing is as and when vaccines become available, I think more and more people can and will step forward to take the vaccine. And I learned from our own example here in the High Commission. If you take the people who work directly for the High Commission and you take the Guard Force or private sector, with our Guard Force team, Hawkeye, when I first spoke to them, there was almost 100% reluctance to take the vaccine. And I sat in this room and I just went through the same briefing process as I did with my own colleagues, and there was 100% take-up. In our own High Commission, bar a few medical cases, we have as near 99% as you can actually get. So within this microcosm, we have created, using our own UK-delivered vaccines, not Jamaican supplies, to have overcome this hesitancy. We've answered those genuine questions. Was it developed too soon? Do they have microchips in them? Is it an experiment on black people? What about pregnant people? What about young? What about the side effects? And how is the vaccine actually made? We took the time to explain all of those details. And as a result of that, people trust what we are telling them, trust the science.